When the Second World War began in 1939, Britain stood as an island nation entirely dependent on the sea. Everything, food, oil, weapons, and raw materials, had to cross the ocean. Without those supply lines, Britain would starve long before the enemy reached its shores. The lifeline of the Atlantic became the most vital front of the entire war. From the first day of hostilities, German submarines, U-boats, slipped silently from their bases on the North Sea, hunting merchant ships like wolves in the dark. Within weeks, tankers and freighters were burning on the horizon. The British Admiralty realized that if these attacks continued unchecked, the nation's industrial heart would collapse. So, from the ashes of the Great War, the convoy system was reborn. Convoys were the opposite of chaos. Hundreds of merchant ships grouped together, protected by destroyers, corvettes, and aircraft. It was a desperate form of organized vulnerability, safety in numbers against an unseen enemy. Sailors who had never held a weapon before now sailed into the deadliest waters on Earth. The Atlantic was vast, cruel, and cold. Storms could tear a ship apart even without an enemy in sight. Ice, fog, and endless nights became the backdrop for a hidden war that stretched across 5 years. For the merchant seamen, it was not about glory, it was survival. By the end of 1940, Britain was losing more than 500,000 tons of shipping each month. Each sinking meant fewer supplies, less fuel, fewer rations. Londoners could feel the war not only in the bombs falling from the sky, but also in the empty shelves of grocery stores. The battle for the Atlantic was not fought with medals, it was fought with hunger. Chapter 2. The Wolves of the Deep. Germany's U-boats were not just weapons, they were instruments of fear. Crews lived for weeks inside metal tubes no wider than a bus, enduring crushing pressure and silence. When they struck without warning. Admiral Karl Donitz, commander of the German submarine fleet, developed the tactic that would terrorize the seas: Rudel attacks, or wolf packs. Dozens of submarines coordinated by radio would converge on a convoy at night, surfacing together to fire torpedoes in waves. The escort ships could fight 1, maybe 2 attackers, but not 10 at once. To the men aboard merchant vessels, those nights felt endless. The ocean flashed with explosions. Flames rose from oil tankers. Survivors clung to debris in freezing water, praying for rescue. Many never saw dawn. By 1941, U-boats were sinking ships faster than Britain could replace them. Entire convoys vanished in the mid-Atlantic gap, the deadly stretch beyond the range of Allied aircraft. Donitz called it his happy time, but the Germans too paid a price. As the Allies improved radar, sonar, and code breaking, the hunters began to be hunted. Still, the fear of the unseen enemy lingered. Every creak in the hull, every shadow on the horizon could mean death. Merchant sailors earned no fame, no headlines, but Churchill later said that if Britain had lost the Battle of the Atlantic, the war itself would have been lost. Chapter 3. The Convoy Heroes. They were not soldiers in uniform. They were cooks, dockhands, fishermen, and engineers turned seamen overnight. Yet they faced the same danger as any front line. The men of the merchant navy came from every corner of the empire: Canada, India, Norway, and beyond. Many were barely 20. Life aboard a convoy ship was a mix of monotony and terror. Days of endless gray, followed by seconds of chaos. They stood watch in freezing winds, chipped ice from the decks, and prayed their ship wouldn't be the next hit. When torpedoes struck, they had minutes, sometimes seconds, to abandon ship. There were acts of unbelievable courage. Captains who stayed on burning bridges to guide survivors clear. Radio operators who sent distress calls until flames engulfed them. Entire crews who refused to leave wounded comrades behind. Few received medals, many were buried at sea without names. The naval escorts, the corvettes and destroyers, were their guardian angels, small, fast ships, crewed by men barely older than the ones they protected. They hunted submarines with depth charges, chasing sonar echoes through fog and darkness. Between them and the merchantmen formed an unbreakable bond, the silent brotherhood of the Atlantic. Chapter 4. Turning the Tide. In 1943, the balance began to shift. The Allies had cracked the Enigma code, reading German naval messages almost in real time. Long-range aircraft filled the deadly mid-Atlantic gap. Escort carriers launched planes from the sea itself. The Wolfpacks suddenly found themselves exposed. New weapons, hedgehog mortars, improved sonar, radar that could see through night and storm, gave escort ships lethal precision. For the first time, U-boats were being destroyed faster than Germany could build them. The hunters had become the hunted. Convoys grew bolder. Supplies flowed once more into Britain's ports. Tanks, grain, ammunition, oil, everything that made D-Day possible. Each crate unloaded in Liverpool or Glasgow was a silent victory, but the cost had been unimaginable. By war's end, more than 30,000 merchant sailors had lost their lives, one of every 7 who served. Their graves had no crosses, only coordinates lost to the sea. Chapter 5. Arctic Hell. Beyond the Atlantic, another lifeline carried supplies north to the Soviet Union through the Arctic Ocean. These convoys sailed to Murmansk and Archangel, through storms that froze metal solid and seas thick with ice. Temperatures plunged below -30°C, and U-boats lurked beneath the frozen waves. The Arctic convoys became legendary for their suffering. Ships coated in ice heavier than armor. Men whose hands froze to the guns. German aircraft swooped from Norway, turning white seas red with fire. Yet the convoys kept sailing. PQ-17, PQ-18, and dozens more. They delivered tanks, aircraft, food, and hope to a desperate Soviet front. Stalin himself called the sailors heroes without faces. Even after catastrophic losses, entire convoys annihilated, they never stopped. Their endurance symbolized the unity of Allied sacrifice. Chapter 6. Victory at Sea. When victory finally came in 1945, the Atlantic was littered with wrecks, iron tombs beneath gray waves. The convoy system had done its duty. Britain had survived, the Allies had triumphed. But for the men who sailed those routes, there were no parades. The merchant navy was often forgotten, overshadowed by the glamour of armies and air forces. Yet historians now agree, without those convoys, D-Day could not have happened. The Soviets might have collapsed, and the war might have dragged on for years. Their courage was quiet but absolute. They fought an invisible war where survival itself was victory. And though the sea has claimed their bodies, their legacy endures in every cargo ship that still crosses the ocean today. A reminder that sometimes the greatest battles are fought not with guns, but with endurance, duty, and faith against impossible odds. The Battle of the Atlantic was not only the longest campaign of World War II, it was the one that kept hope alive.